Service Director, Sean Murphy. Helping her is Claire Green, who is also our Director of Natural Resources. Here, being one of our question screeners, is Marty Worley. Marty Worley is also on the board of League as a Director at Large. In the back, I have Marion Evans, who's a question taker. If you have a question you want to ask one of the candidates, Marion will get you a card, fill it out, she'll pick it up and bring it up to the questioners. We have Linda Furr, Diana Megri, and I think that's it. Did I miss anybody? Oh, our timers. We have 2 timers. They time the amount of time that the candidate is speaking, and they give them a little signal when their time is up. And we have Mary Lee Muter on the timing cards, and Carolyn Dusenberry with the stopwatch. From the press, we have Roger Aylworth from the Chico Enterprise Record and Tom Gascoigne from the Chico News and Review. And in our audience, we have a reporter named Sky from KCHO Radio. And so with that, I think I'll turn it over to Sean.
Hello, and thank you for coming tonight. This is a forum for State Senate District 4, State Assembly District 3, and for Butte County Assessor. Please hold all applause until the end of each individual forum so that we have more time so that candidates can ask their questions or answer their questions, and then we can all give all candidates a good round of applause when they're done. Candidates tonight will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement, 2 minutes to make a closing statement, and questions, they will have 2 minutes to answer each question. At the back of the room, as Jane mentioned, there will be people with cards, so if you have any questions that you would like to ask, please write your questions in a general way that can be answered by all candidates on the panel, as candidates will all have an opportunity to answer each question. No rebuttal will be given for the questions. Additionally, Jane also mentioned our timers. Our timers will hold up a 1-minute warning, a 30-second warning, and a 15-second warning to let candidates know how much time they have left to answer the questions. The candidates each drew a number to decide who would open first, and the reverse order will be given for their closing statements. With that, we will begin with the State Senate District 4 candidates, Mr. C.J. Jawahar and Mr. Jim Nielsen. Additionally, as Jane mentioned, the Chico News and Review and the Enterprise Record are both here, and so they will be helping me ask questions. So the newspapers will ask their questions first, and then we'll have an opportunity from the audience members, and we'll go back and forth asking questions of the candidates. The candidate who drew the lowest number was Mr. Jawahar, so he will open first, and then Mr. Nielsen will give his opening statement, and the closing statement will be Mr. Nielsen giving his closing statement first, and Mr. Jawahar having the last statement on closing. So with that.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, League of Women Voters, and thank you, voters, for coming here. It's been wonderful. I was here by myself before the primary. Actually, I'm more thankful today just to have a chance to get away from Roseville. Roseville, Sacramento, Auburn, all the areas all under smoke. A lot of ash, and this is good. I really wish Butte stays the way it is. It's really difficult. What I'm trying to say is, with all that, climate change is real. Okay, we need to do something about it. There are 1,000 fires going on today in California compared to last year. Last year, the world total pushed about 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And that's what we are seeing now. The prolonged drought, I used to wonder how our ancestors used to handle these wildfires. They did not have fire trucks. They did not have helicopters. They did not have fire deterrents. You know what they had? They had water. They had water plenty. And that's how they controlled the fire and protected themselves. Look at us now, where we are. Year after year, decades after decade, because of this poor management, we did not store enough water for farming, for drinking, for industrial, and to protect us from fires. So there are a lot of things I'm here to share with you tonight. Thanks for coming. I'm ready to answer your questions. I'm pleased to meet Senator Nielsen. I met with him last Monday. I'm here again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nielsen.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for again.
The green light on.
There we go. Good evening, and thank you for coming, folks, and League of Women Voters. Thank you for again helping to inform the public that they be good, intelligent, knowledgeable voters. It's a pleasure to be before you again. You know, many years ago, as a young farmer, I realized that most of what was affecting my ability to produce and profit as a farmer was government, and what I was doing was complaining about it. And I decided that more was required of me than just complaining and voting. So I began to get involved in my industry as a leader. I got involved in my community as a leader. I got involved in the Republican Party as a leader. Then I took leave of my senses and ran for the state legislature. And you know what I found is nothing but frustration along the way. And of late, the state of things is such that those frustrations are even greater. But I found out that one citizen's strong voice can make a difference. That means your voice as well as mine. My voice individually and my voice as a representative of all of you. My voice in the state legislature as I articulate the positions about the integrity of the legislative process and being true to the people that the legislature represents. In California, the economy and jobs are our most important issue, and government is the most limiting factor that is harmful to our economy and the opportunity to provide jobs in this state. And further, we have a public safety crisis of unprecedented magnitude. I know that because 18 years I served on the board of Prison Terms, the largest parole authority in the world. I've looked at this up front and personal. We can each make a difference.
Thank you, Mr. Nielsen. Candidates will answer questions starting in alphabetical order and go in alphabetical order for the forums. So starting with a question from the news.
So I'm addressing this to Mr. Jawahar first? No.
Questions are to be asked of both candidates, addressed to Mr. Jawahar first.
Yes,
yeah.
okay. Do you support Proposition 1, the water bond, and why or why not?
Absolutely, yes. I've been a proponent of a water bond for a very long time. Senator Jim Nielsen also on board. We are just agreeing on this one. Why I'm supporting? I've been a proponent to store more water. I just told that at my introduction, my opening statement too. I'm so glad the legislature decided to set aside $2.8 billion to build 2 reservoirs, one at sites and one down south. And that is very important. We let 150 million acre-feet of water into the ocean. We should have done a good job in storing that water for our farming, for our industrial purposes. We don't have water today, so our agriculture is down, so job is down. And I'm going to talk more about job later on, but let me stick to the water. And when I say water, it is not just surface water. The bond has water to reclaim the groundwater. That is very, very important. $800 million to clean up the water because of mindless drafting of groundwater years after years. So now we need to do something about it. That's why I am for regulating the groundwater, and so happy that $100 million been set aside for groundwater management. So those are the reasons why I like and I support Water Bond 1. You also, I request the voters to support the 2. Thank you.
Prop 1 is a must support. I've been a part of every water negotiation since the 1970s, including in 2009, the major policy changes in water in California at that time. Those were significant in that they asserted for the first time in many years that humans had a water right. They asserted that everything about water was not delta-centric, meaning only about the delta. And I speak as one who used to represent the delta. But all of the needs of water are not fixing the delta. They're upstream, downstream, and they are east and west. That was a significant achievement. But in that bond, it never got to the ballot. So here we are today, and in this last year, some extensive hearings and negotiations occurred. Thousands of hours, just like in '09, thousands of hours were expended in meetings, Tuesdays nights and Thursdays night, and hearings around the state to come up with some kind of consensus. And lo and behold, on the water bond, there was a huge consensus, an almost unanimous vote. There were only 2 votes in the whole legislature. That's almost unprecedented. The key to this bond that is before us, it allows up to $2.75 billion for storage. So we do not have to share the scarcity of water anymore, that we will actually enhance supplies for human use, for agricultural use, for environmental use. There will be Sites Reservoir in Colusa County and Temperance Flat down in the valley. That's a huge, significant, bipartisan accomplishment.
Thank you. Mr. Allworth? Allworth. Thank you.
One of the issues that's been very hot in Butte County for the last 3 or 4 years has to do with the control or regulation of medical marijuana production in the county. Where do you individuals come down on the side of regulating cultivation of medical marijuana?
Well, let me go first on this. First of all, I see the need for medical marijuana, narrowly defined as was passed by the voters of the state of California. That is not how medical marijuana has been promoted and accepted, and I have a problem with that. And the most important entity to regulate that would be the local communities, not the state. There have been attempts to have a state agency created to oversee medical marijuana distribution in our communities. That's the worst way it could be done. And it would be nothing but promoting more and expanding the use of marijuana for much other than medical purposes. So I stand with the county ordinance here. I think they've made good progress, and we ought to let it be, as is. The county speaks first, and keep the state out of it.
I spoke about marijuana a couple of months ago. I'm still having the same position. I'm glad we have the medical marijuana in place today. It's been working for more than 10 years. Now I think we are at the crossroad to expand that, looking at Colorado and Washington upstate, what's happening with their legalization of marijuana. I support legalization on 2 grounds. One is to stop the illegal cultivation of marijuana in the farming area, where they mess up with the upstream water, mixing the chemicals illegally they use in those marijuana farms. And that is affecting other farmers because of those chemicals. So that is a big concern. I believe the area legislator, assemblyman, brought that out. There was a big news a few months ago. So I am with him. We need to stop illegal cultivation. How we stop? By legalizing that. The second one is the crime related to the marijuana. We talk about the prison population overwhelmed. So how do we do that? About 30% of the prison population is because of the drug-related offenses. Okay, when we consider a criminal justice reform, the directly related topic is legalizing the marijuana. And of course, the economy is involved. You know, if you can make this, if you can legalize and then tax this, that's the way to go. I'm not rushing right now. I believe we are looking at 2016 ballot measure on this. And I respect the local government's control on that, but let's not take a piecemeal approach here. We need a state-level legislation for marijuana like Colorado and Washington. Maybe we'll learn lesson by then when we get to the prime time. Thanks for asking the question. It's a very important question. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll take a question from the audience. This is a two-part question going back to the water issue. And the question is, do you support the takeover by the state of ag water management if there is a long-term drought situation? And do you have any ideas for more surface water storage? And that question goes to Mr. Jawahar.
Thank you. Very important. Water has been part of my life. I grew up in a farming family. I know the importance of every drop of water when it comes to farming. Coming back to water grab or government taking away the water, here's my thought. I shared the same thought at Yuba City at another debate. Starting 1914 till today, state of California issued about 12,000 water rights, junior water rights, senior water rights, what have you, to the order of 370 million acre feet. On an average, what we have on the surface is, I'm talking about the surface water, is about 70 million acre feet. So we just kept giving the rights without even having that size of water. So when we want to streamline, so that is the way to go, whether it is underground or the surface water, we need to regulate so everybody benefits. Let me share a story. I don't want to name the county from the Central Valley. One gentleman, he has a well, a water well. So he started pumping water to the adjacent county, selling the water and pocketing $15 million into his pocket. That is wrong. The surface water is for everybody. You can use it, I can use it. We have the right to use it, not the right to sell it. So likewise, underground water is also must be for everyone. So that has to be regulated, and I'm so glad that has been legislated. And the county governments, the local government, the water districts, they will have more power to regulate it. That's the way to go. Thank you.
Water is absolutely critical to our agricultural industry. We cannot survive in this state economically without that industry being sound and prosperous, productive. And it cannot be without water. That's why the storage facilities of sites, Temperance Flat, are so critical in this bond down. For the first time since Orville, we can have statewide impoundment of water that can do groundwater recharge as well as being used for environmental use, but particularly for agricultural use. But we are at peril now. Who from our government that I talked about earlier that is usurping local authority and local power? And in the case of water, usurping historic water rights that date indeed to 1914. Those water holders are senior water rights holders. There are other senior water right holders and then junior water right holders. Now the key to that is trust. Trust that that covenant of your government with you in terms of your water is going to be met. And now that is beginning to be violated by the water board usurping, coming in and saying, no, we're going to use your water for something else. We're going to regulate how much you can pump and tell you when you can pump and when you can't pump. That's a very, very dangerous precedent. It's happening in all agencies, but in terms of water, it is particularly critical. That cannot work for agriculture in the state of California, and we've got to push back to ensure that that legislation is made reasonable, as well the groundwater legislation that now has passed that is also usurping local authority and allowing the state to absolutely, positively control your groundwater, which has historically been a water right of the individual landowner, a historic water right. and now a property right, if you will, and now we're going to say, no, no, the state can tell you what to do with that right. That's absolutely wrong, ladies and gentlemen. There are ways to conserve. Agriculture has been preeminent in conservation.
Thank you. Another question from the audience. Proponents of a higher minimum wage contend that it results in economic growth. Do you support a raise in the California minimum wage, and if so, to what level? And that question goes to Mr. Nielsen to start.
No, I have not supported minimum wage. Minimum wage extensions, and particularly the onerous provisions now linked to minimum wage of an automatic cost of living increase every year, only ensures that entry-level individuals will not have jobs. It always works to the contrary as to what the noble and the intended would like to do. We have cities like San Francisco. Obviously, it costs more to live in San Francisco, but they put their minimum wage up to an exorbitant level. And then that sets the standard for communities like this one. It drives out jobs. It drives out the most important jobs, those entry-level jobs. No, the minimum wage is not the answer to the economic growth of this state and the economic well-being of our individuals. It is getting government out of the way to stimulate entrepreneurial investment, entrepreneurial creation of wealth and making of jobs, providing opportunities to employ people instead of imposing a minimum wage that does just the opposite.
I support minimum wage increase. There are multiple towns, cities in California has enacted locally, anywhere between $12 to $15, San Jose, San Francisco, Davis. It is important. About 100 years ago, it took 2 years to give a raise of 30%. Of course, in terms of the dollar amount, it was very minimal at that time. We're talking about $1 to, let's say, $1.20 or $1.30. But here we are after 100 years. We are stuck with the minimum wage for a very long time. And that is impacting a low-wage families and the middle-class families. So let me ask one question. There are about 19 million workers, wage earners, I would say, in California. So if you raise $5, just pretend we are raising $5. So now you do the math. So that many billion of, when they get the raise, obviously a couple of $100 a week, where do you think the money would go? That's not going to go into an offshore account. That will be spent locally, at the state, in the country, right? So that is going to be circulated within this, and that money is going to go back to the businesses, and that is the way to go. That's a very, very simple economy. It's no-brainer. People have been talked about that for a very long time. I know some people don't like the idea, but when you go out to the field, I've been going around my district like probably 10th time, Chico probably 20th time. Wherever I go, homelessness, poverty, 1 in 5 people in my district live below the poverty line. I have told that many times. How do we do that? Give them a job, and give them a good job. Give them a living job, not a minimum wage job. We are in America. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Gascoigne?
Addressing this to
Mr. Jawahar?
Mr. Jawahar. Where do you stand on the practice of fracking, which is the extracting of oil and gas from shale rock? It's a very hot topic here in Butte County. And
thank you. Thank you for asking the question. I know I am in the hot seat. Thank you for Butte County being a good fighter for the fracking. I myself been fighting for the fracking. That's one thing Capitol and I don't look eye to eye. I know we have a lot of reserve. The reserve can be explored, but not with this dirty technology. Why I hate fracking is the fracking involves water. Out of the past 15 minutes or so, we've been talking about water a lot. It does not make a sense to put billions of gallons of water to extract another billions of billions of gallons of oil. Now, after the fact you extract the oil, what are you going to do? The oil mixed with toxic chemicals and the oil. There's no way you can reclaim the water. Now we are at the third year of the drought, and if we talk about fracking, that's insanity. Now, if anyone shows me, I'm an engineer, if anyone shows me a neat technology to extract oil or the natural gas, I would be the first person to sign up. Trust me. I know there are about $25 billion worth of shale oil in California. But folks, I want to tell you this. If you let them have their hands on that, they will extract them and they will walk away, sending all that to the Middle East or maybe even faraway places. And you and me will end up hugging not trees, those little thingies, the black oil heads. We don't want to get there. Thank you. No to fracking. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Some of the Air Board's own surveys indicate we'd be looking up as high as $7 a gallon gasoline in the state of California. My point is we cannot take care of our water or our energy future by sharing of scarcity. Hydraulic fracturing is a proven means of developing needed energy resources. Gas and oil, natural gas, that's a big thing around here. It's tried and proven. It has an enormous economic impact. And there's ample evidence to show that it can be done safely. It would be very foolhardy for Americans, Californians, to take that resource off the table. It would be prudent and wise to utilize that resource, to develop future and more safe technologies even than we have enjoyed today, but build to our energy future by basing it in part on supply, in part on conservation, but in having an energy basket of many sources of supply. This, in my opinion, is a soundly proven one. Hydraulic fracturing should proceed.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Roger.
If I can figure out how to push the button. Here we go. One of the issues that's been important in this county and probably the rest of the state has been AB 109, the movement of prisons, the maintenance of prisoners out of the state's control and into the hands of counties who, in many cases, don't have the facilities to be able to meet the demands put on them in this area. What do you think about AB 109, the way it's operated, and what do you foresee in the future?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I speak with authority and passion. For many, many years, I was the head of the California Board of Prison Terms. I've been a part of California when we were safe and there was justice in criminal justice. Now you are not safe, and the criminal justice system has been turned upside down with AB 109 and some of its precursor followers, following legislation. We are not safe. AB 109 has got to be changed and justice restored. One of the ways to do that is to oppose Proposition 47, which reduces sentencing. What that does, it destroys justice. If you do a crime, you should pay the price. This diminishes it all. And there is the false assumption attendant to 109 that there are non-serious, non-violent, non-sexual offenders that are being released. That is absolutely incorrect. Read any newspaper that you want to. Look at what's going on in downtown Chico or in downtown Redding in terms of our public safety. The cuffs have been taken off our law enforcement and put on, off the criminals and put on law enforcement. So AB 109 has got to be changed. And remember, the courts did not say release 40-some thousand plus unrehabilitated felons into our communities. They said fix prison health care. There are other solutions which I can talk to you at length about, which I have been advocating since 1992. 109 is not the answer. It's the worst bill ever passed in the history of the state of California.
109, I've been following it since it was enacted late 2011. Senator Jim Nielsen and I agree that it's not working. But how do we differ? So he is still having the same solution of the last century. Build more prisons, lock them up, throw the key away. We need to be smarter than that. He talked about Prop 47, which is going to be on the ballot about criminal justice reform. That's the way to go. I work with a local non-governmental organization in Placer County looking at the jail system, Placer County. They came up with a master plan about a week ago, and I was at the meeting when they gave an introduction to the master plan. They did not approve it, but it was an introductory session. Things are not looking good. Obviously, the jail system is not capable of handling the diverted population, the offenders from the prison system. How do we fix it? Is that by building more prison would solve it? No. That's what we did for years after years. It did not solve the problem. The solving the problem is, we need to revisit the justice system. We need to look at, when you sentence someone, look at the risk element. How risky the person, the individual is to repeat the offense. If not, if the individual is not, risky enough, reduce the sentencing, rehabilitate him or her, and put her back into the community in a very graceful manner by educating, providing some technical skill, some trade, so that job is a criteria. Job would only stop them from going back to the revolving door. So that's a way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. What are your views regarding climate change? Do you believe it exists, and if so, do you believe it is man-made? And what actions, if any, should the North State take to combat it? And that question goes to Mr. Jawahar to start.
In my opening statement, I'm glad you asked the question, so I have another 2 minutes to explain what I was talking about earlier. Climate change is real. It's a science. Only politics says no. Okay, so keep the politics away. Just look at the science. I'm sure I'm in a Chico town which has a university. I'm sure some of you are from that university. Maybe you went. So we are all educated. Look at the number. Here we are, prolonged drought, fire after fire, and that fire again pollutes the environment. How are you going to contain it? How are you going to get more rain? How are you going to store that water from the runoff? How are you going to protect our towns and our state from the clear cut? So these are all interrelated. The data shows where the problem is. Some of us, the voters and the politicians, don't want to see those data. So let's come to the table. AB 32 is in place. Thank heavens. California is a place of 38 million people. As your legislator, I have to look at every segment of my society and protect them. I just want to give you one data. Down south in Central Valley, there are more people dying from a poor air quality, from respiratory-related diseases compared to accidents, compared to car accidents. About 500 more in a one given year. So that's where we are. Are we going to pass the same state to our generation? My daughter is sitting there. She is a 5th grader. And your grandchildren are going to live in this state. So I am so much concerned that after my lifetime, I got to leave a state, leave a country, which should be a place for my generation to live, have a happy life.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Jawahar. Mr. Nielsen?
Climate change has been real since there was an earth. It ebbs and it flows. with cooling and warming over the eons. That's not a new phenomenon as it's been promoted. It's just something that happened. And it didn't just happen because of human beings. What do you think it was like around here when Lassen and Shasta were spewing forth? And there weren't any humans around in those days. Our response to these situations, global warming, global cooling, must be a deliberative and balanced approach that takes into account that humans do live on this earth. Humans have a need to a healthy life and environment. Humans have a need and a right to have economic opportunities. And the promulgation of regulation and legislation related to climate change in California, even under AB 32, has been indeed draconian and has hurt the average citizen's ability to work, to have a job, to build a business. It's discouraged businesses from expanding in California. In fact, they are leaving, and that's one of the reasons. Look at climate change not as a cataclysmic disaster come to visit upon us, but something historic that we work with, and we work with in a balanced manner.
Thank you. I have another question here regarding water. It is obviously a very important topic to the North State people. And the question is, if water storage is the solution as advanced in Proposition 1, then how do you explain spending billions more on new storage when the current storage we currently have is basically empty? And to follow that, where do you stand on enforcing water conservation amongst users?
Well, you go first?
Mr. Nielsen, yes.
Well, first of all, storage is absolutely essential unless you want to build your future on a sharing of scarcity. And it's a specious argument to say that we've got empty reservoirs, so we don't need any new reservoirs. Folks, we already had a supply crisis when Shasta was full and Folsom was full, and when Friant and Pine Flat were full. No, that's not the issue. The issue in the total amount of water available for all of the uses that I defined before, we must have more resources. Now, in terms of conservation, let's understand, and let's use agriculture as an example. My industry has been preeminent in conserving water, using less for its crops, not the wasteful thing that it has erroneously been lambasted about. We've been the best. And why? Because a state agency told us that we had to and put regulations on us and fined us? No. But because it was to our economic advantage to do so. We spent less money with our water, buying and securing our water, because we could use less. We spent more money defining and employing new conservation means. The agencies get involved, fine tinkering, get caught up in their awesome power. And ladies and gentlemen, the agencies of government are our enemies. They are not our friends usually, though there are wonderful people who work in state government. I love them. But I spend, and my staff spends most of our time working on your behalf with agencies who are arbitrary and capricious. And when you give them that extra authority that we've now just done, it only gets worse.
Dance. Let me start with the point I brought up earlier. What are we going to do about the 150? On a wet year, we let 150 million acre feet into the ocean. So that's exactly my focus would be. Where and how to store part of that water. I'm not asking to, just to give an example, a Folsom Dam can hold about 1 million acre feet of water. In that rate, we need about 150 more dams. Am I suggesting? No. There could be some dams, but there are other ways to store water. I'm from Roseville. Roseville has a huge aquifer underneath. So this is what we did. When we get plenty of water, we pump, actually, city of Roseville gets water from the Folsom Reservoir. So when we get more water, we pump the water, excess water, into the aquifer. That's what we did a couple of years, for 2 years. This year, when we did not get water from, because of Folsom Reservoir became a dead pool, we could not draw water anymore. So we started drawing water from our aquifer. So what I'm trying to say is, wherever there is a possibility to store water underground into your aquifer, that's the way to go. Off-site, like Calusa, Sites Reservoir. If it is not possible with those two ways, we can always go to an on-stream dam. Now, the conservation, there are many techniques being applied in California. I am a proponent of water recycling at multiple levels. And if it takes to cut down our lawns a little bit, that's a way to go too. Pools, we can manage, if we could manage those pools, we can conserve some water. And desalination is another way of making some additional water. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, here's another topic that's been kind of hot locally, and that is, where do you stand on the issue of requiring the labeling of GMOs, which are foods that contain genetically modified organisms?
Thank you. Yes, on labeling. This is the reason. I was looking at the data. Because of the genetically modified the vegetation, what they try to do is they pump more chemicals called fertilizer into their farmland to increase the productivity. So what happens next? So when you apply fertilizer into your farming more than needed, so that's going to end up into your aquifer or your the water streams. So that is very damaging, to the order of 500 billion pounds of excessive, this is the data. I'm not just throwing it in the air. This is into those farming lands in America. So that's why I oppose the GMO products. And labeling is very important. We should have a choice to pick what I need. If it is genetically modified, if I choose not to use, I have the right to avoid that. How do I know? Only by that labeling. And there are related issues for GMOs. There are tons and tons, and the diseases I can list. I couldn't remember on top of my head, but we are in digital age. It's no brainer. Please go look up GMO-related diseases. You will get arm, lung diseases. So it might help businesses, but guys, I always think about people, okay? Any decision that we make, we have to make sure we have to have a point of return. I don't want to do anything which does not give you a point of return. Thank you.
There are all kinds of businesses who do identify on their labeling not using GMO technology. They can do that already. What I don't believe in is having government dictate that or discourage genetic modification. The success that we have had in the world of feeding each other's, and I have traveled in India, the International Crops Research Institute of the Semi-Arid Tropics, I even remember that long name, how we were breeding wheat varieties for lower stature so you didn't have all of the straw to deal with, that you got more of the actual wheat head, the food, where we could significantly enhance our production. And with this technology over the years, we have been able to significantly reduce our use of fertilizers and of agricultural chemicals. Now, I'm only speaking to the agricultural industry right now. We've been able to reduce it, not increase it. It does help if you, again, want to feed the people. There are certain things that are required. You need land, you need water, you need farmers, you need other resources to be able to do that, and you need technology. The technological revolution that we have enjoyed for some 5 decades in America is why we are able to feed the world and not have massive famines around the world. I've looked it in the eye in India, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've done a fine job balancing genetic modification and ensuring public safety. And again, if anyone wants to put the label and use that as a marketing tool and advantage, they can do that all together today.
Thank you. And our last question tonight will come from the Enterprise Record.
Recognizing that it's a federal issue and not directly under your purview, but the issue of access to the national forests for recreation, for the use of off-road vehicles, for camping, for the harvesting of timber is an important issue in Butte County that hasn't always been readily available to county residents because of regulation in the national forests. How do you feel about that? What, if anything, could you do as a state legislator to make these things more available?
Okay. Who's first on that one?
Mr. Nielsen, you are.
Well, let me take a stab at it. Well, access to our forests and our wildlands is a critical right and opportunity of Americans, I believe, that has in many cases, because of government, been denied. And because of, for decades, we have not managed our forests and wildlands. This enormous accumulation of fuel that has made these cataclysmic fires that just don't burn the foliage, but that sterilize the ground. That's what this smoke in the valley this very day is all about, not having managed those forests and wildlands. And that means being good stewards, and that means having some logging and brush removal in those forests and those wildlands. Meaning good management practices. In terms of recreating, the off-road vehicle folks have been absolutely ripped off and defrauded by our government, whereby they, and I see it as a member of the Budget Committee, and I rail against it every year, they pay these exorbitant amounts into this fund that is used for other purposes, including balancing the rest of the budget, for which they do not receive any benefit, which is a violation of Proposition 26. There is no nexus to a benefit to them making that contribution to the state. They've been ripped off. They've been further by the national authorities, more so than the state. They've been precluded, stopped from going into areas that we historically were able to visit and recreate in. It's kind of an anti-citizen approach of government, trying to deny us access to resources that we truly should be able to enjoy and participate in with our families.
I agree with Senator Jim Nielsen. This is our country. We should have free access to the recreational area, the forest area. But the problem is uncontrolled access. So that's exactly what happened to the King Fire. One senseless visitor, when he does a simple mistake, that is going to take toll on the entire region. Thousands and thousands of people, hundreds and hundreds of homes. So who is going to be held accountable? Putting him behind the bar is not going to fix the problem. So if it takes some guidelines for the visitors into those precious forests, that's the way to go. I don't have all the data in front of me. Being a legislator, probably he had access to those data and he spoke about it. But I can tell you this. If you, as a citizen, have been hindered, have been stopped, that is something I would certainly look at it to help you to have a free access with guidelines. About logging is a huge issue. I probably touched upon a while ago, clear cut, especially in the Sierra area, more you cut, less will be the rain, so you are going to face the consequences. So we have to, as a citizen, we have to make a decision which way we want to go. And again, fees to access those recreation, that's one area I need to look at it. If it is exorbitant, we can definitely look at it and help our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now do closing statements, and the order for closing statements, Mr. Nielsen will start, and then Mr. Jawahar will finish. Thank you.
Thank you to League of Women Voters, and thank you, citizens of the Chico area of Butte County who have come here tonight to see us in this forum. You're seeing government the way it can work. Mr. Jawahar and I actually agree on a number of things. And we're respectful enough of each other that when we have those disagreements, we can do that in an agreeable, amicable way. We know how to identify things that we have in common and build on those things in common, and that's what I've learned in the legislature, and that's why I have been successful. Most recently, and through the highest accomplishments of my whole career, the water bond, Prop 1 and Prop 2, the Reserve for Economic Uncertainties, which finally, for the first time, ensures that 1.5% of our budget will go for these economic uncertainties, such as untold fires that we don't anticipate. It also is an effective governor by reducing the state budget by 1.5% every year, holding the budget cap to a degree. And that's an achievement of defining where you have things in common. But further, there has to be a bottom line, your values, your common core values, and the discernment that you have of what the people you care about, that you represent, care about. And that legislator needs to stand firmly on behalf of the area they represent, like I have for area of origin water rights, which we got in the 2009 water plan, and which we've now got in the bond before us to protect those water rights instead of allowing government to take them. You have to have that ability. When I first ran as a farmer, look them in the eye, shake the hands and make a deal kind of guy, I said to the people, you know, I'm only going to promise what I can deliver. And I know I can deliver this. I will work hard. No one will work harder than I will work on your behalf, and I will listen to you. I keep that pledge this very day. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator Nielsen. We agree to disagree on various topics. I applaud you and the legislature for bringing up the Prop 1 and Prop 2. But the question is, what did we get between 2013 January and today for the district of Senate 4th District? So that's a question. That's why I'm running. How many jobs were created in our backyard? How many light industries were brought into the district to match with the agricultural activities? What did you do to help the students having many community colleges and one university in our backyard? What's been done? So these are all the questions I asked myself when I decided to run. There have been multiple legislation were enacted in the legislature over this period of a year and a half. And I was looking at what the other senators from down south, east and west, what they took from the legislature to their district, and what came into my district. Zero. In terms of jobs, in terms of industry. Before even I get a chance to serve, I've been a proponent. I worked with the local non-governmental organization, with the Tesla, and similar organization to bring jobs into District 4. And all that I ask you is, give me a chance. Here I am, engineer for 25 years, have a good family, and I'm here to support you with your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jawahar and Mr. Nielsen.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll take a very brief 5 minutes at max to switch out our forums and bring on our next candidates.